Amazing. Well, welcome to gets me choked up. Actually, it's because of what you did and this submarine that I have become obsessed with World War II. I taught at the college level for 40 years and retired last year in religious studies. So it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? So here I am, and my brother was the last man from West Point to be killed in Vietnam. He was in a helicopter, which they compare to the U-boats of World War II. You know, just so many lost. And I was up at West Point 2 weeks ago to speak to them on leadership. They were honoring him after all these years. It's been 43 years. Isn't that something? And this, from his roommates. They're still living, retired, and they said, you've gone to the other side, Navy, and the real other side, giving tours on a U-boat. So you've been on before, my dear, to take you on board this boat, which is, as I always say, many people don't know this, an undersea boat. Undersea boat, there's where you get the term U-boat. You have many people not aware of that. And then, of course, when she was built in 1940, and then commissioned into the second flotilla of the Kriegsmarine, or German Navy, obviously, on August 26, 1941. And then, being the Type 9C, she's 252 feet long, 31 feet high, and now unloaded, she weighs approximately 693 tons. Fully loaded, we are told she went anywhere from 11 to 1,200 tons. Now, I know, amazing. And I always point out, since she has been built only to study her in Bermuda, this boat's never been dismantled or taken apart. Has gone on her own power or towed everywhere, including lowering her down here 4 inches at a time on a platform. As you well know, it took almost 3 days. We are 5 stories beneath the front green lawn. This is the only German U-boat preserved this way in the world. Have you been able to see any of the others?
No.
Okay, they are in Europe. And of course there is one in Finland that they say is not necessarily, the historians say, it's not really a U-boat. It was built by the Germans, but sold to the Finns. So it never served for the Germans. All right, with all that in mind, you saw the 1942, and as you well know, 1,100 merchant ships, 8 million tons of cargo were sunk by these boats. And Churchill's the only one that has said, the only thing I'm terrified of this war, German U-boat. So, ready? Let us go, my dears.
I can just not imagine 58 people living in this thing.
Can you imagine on this? And we've removed a lot,
yeah.
As you well know. Yeah. Tell me, which you were on the Guadalcanal. So I can't imagine. I would love. I feel like on the Pope. Oh my gosh! I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. Welcome. You have to tell me about your experiences. Please feel free. We ask for no questions or comments because we are guided by sight and sound. I want as many as you have. Come on in. All right, what I tell our guests is, welcome. You've just entered the Petty Officer's Quarters. Now, museum is lowered to the floor by 8 foot. I am standing original height of the sub. It'll be the height most of the way toward the after back. As you know, these beds are called bunks or racks. The museum, look at all the storage, has removed an entire row from this side. You can imagine how tight and confining this compartment was. We are told it was the coolest on board, 92 to 95 degrees, with many of the crew not ever getting up on deck. Although, and tell me anything that I'm saying possibly incorrectly, this sub traveled much more on the surface than she did submerged. She would only dive when attacking or being attacked. Then, there's what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of you? A crew of 59 men. They added men when they put on the anti-aircraft guns. It was built for 45, but 59, including the captain. Now, please look into the forward torpedo room. You know the enlisted men slept among those torpedoes in those collapsible bunks, not only in the forward, but back in the aft torpedo room. For the 59 men, 35 bunks. And if I am correct, they are still doing this practice, hot bunking or hot racking, with our fast nuclear subs today. But again, what does that mean? Many of our guests do not know that. So I always point out two men and say, you, sir, you're sound asleep. And you, sir, you're on duty. You didn't know that. You come off duty, wake him up, he goes on duty, and you get the privilege of crawling into that nice, hot, sweaty, and with their conditions, lice-ridden bunk. The conditions were deplorable. Now, in this time, look at these batteries. 80-ton electric batteries. Our subs at the time did not have batteries like this. Fresh water then was only used for 3 purposes: drinking, cooking, and maintaining these. Any salt water obviously would emit fatal fumes to the men. So they were referred to only because of their conditions. They were advanced in technology and engineering, but their living conditions were so deplorable, they were called swine boats or pig boats. But with that in mind, it was an honor to become a member on a U-boat crew. Higher pay, better food if you could eat it. 12 tons would be brought on board, put anywhere they could find room. Under the bunks, they hung meat from the pipes. And I love this. There are 2 bathrooms or heads. They would actually fill up the forward bathroom with food at the beginning of their tour of duty. Am I correct? 1 bathroom served the 59 men till they ate their way into the 2nd bathroom. Now, French dance hall music. The U.S. found 80 to 100 French records on board. This is one of them. Highly unusual during World War II. Their port was Lorient, France. But during that time, in Germany, it was illegal to listen to many genres or types of music. You could be arrested in your home, anywhere else in the military, with the exception of the U-boats. And I always say, according to Barb, I think it was Germany's way of keeping these men sane to perform the duties they had to. Now, March 5th, Germany called 1942 their happy season. The Allies called it the slaughter. March 5th of 1942, this boat sights the British freighter, the Benmore. The captain has sounded the dive bell, opens up the valves to the 4 ballast tanks on each side. As you hear, water pours in, down they go. Now, this is just a normal dive, meaning they will only go to a 30-foot depth, periscope depth. Take a good look at that torpedo. They want to keep an eye on this Benmore. The U-505 carried up to 22 of those, each one weighing approximately 3,000 pounds. It is only the captain that can give the command. It's known as a con of loose or fire. If they hit, explosion. If they miss, which they did, silence. And there is the good possibility the U-boat has given away its own location. Now listen very carefully, please. You hear the ticking of stopwatches. They have it timed precisely. And if at the end of that time there is only silence, they know they could be in big trouble. Ah, but they're not. They are cheering. March 5th, 1942, this boat sinks the British freighter, the Benmore. 2 days later, on March 7th, 1942, this boat will sink the Norwegian Sithav. The next month of that happy season for the Germans, April 3rd, 1942, this boat sinks our United States West Irmo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sunk by torpedo. Their 8th hit, or kill as it was known, was by their deck cannon gun. Now this boat was successful until 2 days before D-Day, June 4th, 1944, off the west coast of Africa, U.S. Hunter-Killer Task Group 22.3, commanded by Captain Daniel Gallery of Chicago, will not only capture this submarine, it is the only sub in all of history to today to ever be captured by boarding. Congratulations, gentlemen. What an honor. So, as we go back, please stay to your right, but take a good look at these electric batteries. You will go through the Kitchener Galley, served 59 men. General officers' quarters, no hot racking for them. They had their own bunks. Sound room, radio room on the left housed the German secret coding Enigma machines. On the right, Captain Harold Longest-Funk, the captain of this sub. He was approximately 6 feet 2 inches tall. So watch your step coming back. Watch your steps, sir, please. All right, you are entering the nerve center of the boat. This is the control room, so we'll all come in here, please. Thank you. Actually, the widest compartment on board, 15 feet across. Behind me, plainsman station, as you well know. Electric, brass knobs are the electric controls. Wheels are the manual for the dive planes, up and down, surface and submerge. Right behind you, sir. Tiny station, but important. Helmsman. These are the electric controls. The manual is back in the aft torpedo room. That controls the rudders, steering the boat right and left. Main entrance and exit to the sub. Now, the tower right above here is called the conning tower because the captain's demands were cons. There is an entire room of controls. Periscopes operated from there. When they went below that normal dive of 30 feet, everyone came down here and shut this off. They wore red goggles at night or when the power was down. Night vision. Get ready, here we go. It's May 31st, 1944 off the west coast of Africa. They have been detected by the United States. That is the crash dive signal. Very different than the normal dive we did before. Now, any man not on duty is ordered, run as fast as you can to the forward section of the boat. This boat goes down in 37 seconds. They're not going to 30 feet. They've gone to 300 feet to try to get away from the United States. Now listen. Utter silence. Stealth mode. They will whisper through all of the sound tubes located throughout the boat to communicate. Why? The way I'm talking, or if the men dropped a wrench, that sound could be detected on the surface, giving away the location of the U-505. Now any man not on duty is ordered, go to your bunk and sleep. Less oxygen use and hopefully quieter. You hear this sonar pinging? That is our United States. They are tracking them, and this will go on for approximately 4 to 5 days. The men will eventually dive this boat to 500 feet down. At that depth, there are 16 tons of water pressure per every square foot on the outside or hull of the boat. On top of all that diving, they must take this boat to the surface, which they do at night, every 24 to 36 hours. Open up the hatches so the crew can breathe, recharge those electric batteries. Now this moaning and groaning that you're hearing is the authentic sound of being 500 feet down with all that water pressure. The men had to tolerate it, but what they never wanted to hear was a splash, meaning they're being attacked. There it is, the first splash. Depth charges and hedgehogs are being launched around the aft or back of the boat. She goes into a circular spin and dive. This submarine is going down. All the power fails. The main rudder is jammed. Captain Longo wants to save his men, so he gives a command, surface the boat. That means compressed air is forced into those ballast tanks, called blowing the tanks. The water comes out, and in 30 seconds, this boat pops to the surface. The captain, his executive officer, and a young radio controlman run all the way up this ladder to the top of the tower to assess the situation. The U.S. task force is right there surrounding them, along with U.S. aircraft overhead. They maintain over 6 minutes of gunfire. Captain Longa is knocked from the top of the tower along the pine deck, suffering such severe injuries, eventually his leg will be amputated. One man, the radio controlman, is killed. Now, although critically injured, Captain Longa issues another crucial command: scuttle the boat. That means to sink it on purpose. The U.S., or rather Germany, Captain Longa does not want the U.S. to get a hold of this sub. So the Germans plant 14 scuttling charges throughout the boat. One man uncaps a tiny sea strainer. She's flooding, spiraling out of control due to the jammed rudder, and all 58 surviving men, life rafts, abandon ship, and are rescued by the U.S. task force. Now, on board comes a 9-man boarding party. Once they're down here and locked in, they actually find 13 of the 14 scuttling charges. One man by the name of Zenon Lukosius finds the cap to the sea strainer, recaps that, stops her from flooding, but they must get back to the jammed rudder to get her under control. So please stay to your right. I will go along this way, but you will see the tiny sea strainer with the cap as you leave this compartment.
Watch your head.
Oh, I love it. It means a lot of running on idle, the slowest it could run. When they were at full speed, the men could hear nothing. So those diesels could only be used on the surface. Too loud, too much oxygen use. But on the surface, the diesels would start this electric motor and then this electric motor. Think of our new hybrid cars of today. These motors on the surface then acted as chargers for those huge batteries. That's one of the reasons they had to keep surfacing at night, even under attack. When they submerged, listen, shut off those diesels, switched over to the electric motors, run off those batteries much slower, but totally silent and deadly for a sub underwater. Now, Germans planted 14 explosives. How many did our United States find?
13.
You're the best. I knew it, sir. Captain Daniel Gallery boards the boat at this point. He orders the 9-man boarding party that is standing right here out of this compartment, slams the door and locks it. Captain Gallery would never do anything that he would ask his men to do. He's doing it himself. This is the hatch to the back or aft torpedo room. This is where the manual control for that jammed rudder can be found. Perfect place for the 14th missing charge. Captain Gallery feels around for wires and he opens it. Nothing. Nothing. But take a look in there all the way to the back on your right. You should see a glowing torpedo hatch and I will mark it for you. The 14th explosive was found in this compartment, but not one of the explosives had been armed or set to explode. Only the captain and his 2 officers knew how to do that. They were off the boat or injured. You've seen me doing this all along. I love to do this. The U.S. found the first use of phosphorescent or glow-in-the-dark paint. Germans thought of everything. Painted all their hatches, pipes, and ladders with it so their men never injured themselves. Also in here was found an acoustic homing torpedo toward sound. The U.S. gathered over 900 pounds classified documents and maps. 2 German secret coding Enigma machines, rotary 4, the most advanced. Please do me a favor. The original 2 machines found on this boat are out in our exhibit. Take a good look. But one of the best finds is right next to those machines. You will see a bright red book lined in lead, meant to be thrown overboard and sink. The code books. The Germans didn't throw one of those overboard. Now, with those in hand, the U.S. now knew what Germany was planning, although the code had been broken by 1944. But those machines were so sophisticated and complex, it changed every single day. So we had to keep this top secret. They paint the boat black to look like a U.S. sub. They rename her the USS Nemo. And she is taken from the west coast of Africa, where she was captured, to Bermuda to study her. The 58 surviving men out of all of World War II, highest fatality rate. They called this a tin coffin. 25% or 1 in every 4 lived that served on a U-boat. 58 men, top secret portion of a POW camp, Ruston, Louisiana. It was all illegal on the part of the United States. It was against the Geneva Convention. Everyone thought this boat went down 2 days before D-Day, June 4th, 1944, with everyone on board. Their families, some of them didn't know their loved ones were alive for several years, some not going back till 46 or 47. Why would we do this? It has been documented. Thousands of lives were saved. It has been suggested from the boat you're in right now, World War II ended earlier. So now what are they going to do with her? They're done studying her. The Navy was going to use her as target practice. But Captain Gallery comes to save the day again. He's from Chicago. With all he's done, Admiral Gallery. His brother just happens to be friends with the president of this museum. Win-win. They convinced the Navy to donate her. They tow her from Bermuda and some under her own power to New Hampshire, where she sat for several years. Then down the St. Lawrence Seaway, she toured for the 5 Great Lakes And in early September of 1954, they shut down Lakeshore Drive, put railroad ties across, and it took them all night to pull this boat across. She sat outside, being painted black over and over on the East Lawn for 50 years, 54 to 2004. And then many millions of dollars later, in 2004, she was lowered down here. Final resting place to be preserved forever as a war memorial dedicated to everyone that lost their lives in the Battle of the Atlantic. What a story. Thank you. Thank you. I would love to hear your stories. That's what I would love to hear. So thank you so much. Was I incorrect about anything, sirs?
Not that I know.
Not that you know of. Well, I cannot tell you. I've been married 44 years, and the other night I said to my husband, I'm surfacing. I meant I was going to bed. He said, we've got to get you off that boat, Barb. Well, thank you. It really is an honor. An honor. And you, tell me, that day, just tracking them, what was that like?
It was a surprise.
Was it?
They were just going to have, it was about 12 o'clock there.
Yes.
So, and they were going to dinner, and we were too.
Get out! So you both were going to have dinner, and all of a sudden, that was it. She was right there. You were, now tell me, your whole task force, were you around where she was, or were you in the area? Well, that's a specific I never can get.
They had a pattern for when we was underway with the destroyers around the Guadalcanal.
Okay.
And usually one of them, if he's having flight quarters, well then we'd all have one right astern of us. So pick up any survivors.
Now the men abandoned ship right away, didn't they? Once they surfaced, and that's what you wanted her to do. That's why I say around the afterback, because didn't Gallery say don't hit her? Right?
Well, they planned.
Pickle said when they were going out to pick them up, the guy said, save me. They headed for the boat.
Wasn't there only one person killed?
Yes, ma'am. The young radio controlman, and his diary we have. You know, he said he missed his mother, missed the smell of green grass. He was married. But at 8 a.m. in his diary, he said, I think we've escaped. And it was noon that it was captured. Yes, yes. So it was a surprise to all of you. All of a sudden, it was like...
Well, it was in a way. In other words, when we went out that time, they had organized a prize and salvage crew. In other words, they had a meeting, the captains and all the high rods, that if possible, they would try to capture or take one in control.
HDE had a boarding party.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one was closest to the one that boarded.
That's it. So you had the boarding party. That was the one that came on.
Yeah.
And you knew possibly 14 scuttling charges. I have read that the French told British intelligence, the French workers, that they were planting around 14 scuttling charges.
I had never heard that.
Okay, okay. I just, you know, we have to document everything. I mean, they talk about certifying. I mean, you've got to say facts, and that's it. And that's why I say, according to Barb, I think they were just trying to keep these young men sane to play this music.
Each ship, each captain called all the crews together and says, you don't know a thing, you don't say a thing until World War II is over.
I cannot believe that. That gets me more than anything, that you kept this. When I say top secret, how did that happen? I mean, you obviously followed orders, but I just think today it would be, you know, hard to keep that information quiet, and it had to be.
Each one of them said, we're not going to court-martial, we're going to shoot you. That was just...
That was it. That, oh my, oh, now that is something. There it is. there it is, to keep that top secret for those years. And I know the men at in Ruston sent up balloons at one point trying to say the U-505 lives. I had a group from Louisiana Tech. That's in Ruston, Louisiana. They have a whole museum dedicated to the prisoners. And they were very interested here. They just couldn't wait to come. You're amazing. That's all I have to say.
We had some guy that wrote a book about that. He was playing ball with them.
Oh, playing with the enemy.
Yeah,
He was a young man headed for pro baseball career, but went into the Navy.
We had him here with a group.
Did you? Yeah, I've read all about him. And do you know that's now being made into a movie? Here we go. I don't know what that will be like, but it's by a very excellent director. He directed the movie My Left Foot. So it should be interesting. Yes. I've read the book.
Gary Moore.
Yes, sir.
Do they tell you anything about the mess cook that came back aboard? The German mess cook that come back and helped in doing what he was able to do?
No. He helped us. Came back on board, the mess cook.
He was a Polish mess cook.
That's okay. I've heard there was a Polish survivor that helped the U.S., but I didn't realize. Thank you.
In fact, we had a my Polish fella aboard ship. He was master at arms, and he could speak Polish.
Translator.
And when they went through their interrogating,
yes,
they evidently he explained that he could help them out because everybody had to know as much about the stuff as they could. And so
he was the one that helped. I had read that, but I didn't realize he was the mess cook.